Hello and welcome to our Friday webinar. We have, oh my goodness, another, we're revisiting a topic that we had with Pamela Clark. Welcome back, Pamela. Thank you for
Thank
joining
you.
us. So we're going to do part two of behavior misconceptions. Do I have a problem parrot, right? So it was so, I'm glad we're doing part two because this is just such a hot topic, right? So let's see here. We'll let people log on, but yeah. Do you have so it's fall, right? So now we're officially like we're in the fall season.
Hmm.
Behavior, there's always been this equation with fall hormones and things like that. Is that like a myth? Is that a fact? Is that absolutely you should brace for this? Like I'm gonna start off with that. The fall
The
hormone
re
thing, because it's a very big
well,
catchphrase, right?
well, yeah, but the reality is that day length does impact hormone production, but differently in different sets of species. So the New World parrots, meaning parrots that came from North, Central, and South America, like Amazons, Pioneers, macaws, Quakers, those birds all become, I hate to simplify it by saying that they become more hormonal, but I would say they are impacted when day length increases in the springtime. And veterinarians realized this a couple of decades ago, but they made a mistake because their advice was that we should extend day length or darkness for all species in order to control hormone production. But the truth is, the old world parrots, Poicephalus, African greys, cockatoos, lovebirds, budgies, cockatiels, those birds all become more hormonal in the fall. So this idea that you should give birds 12 hours of darkness is completely wrong. I can't say this often enough. Everybody believes it because it keeps getting repeated. But in reality, you should let your birds go to bed when they want to, and then get them up as early as possible in the morning. So,
Okay, all right. That's a good one. That's a good one to start with because like we're literally like in the thick of the season, so to speak. So I'm
yeah.
glad you're able to.
And if I might say one more thing, it is that there are so many triggers that are more important than day length. Trying to focus on day length and control that, in order to control hormone production is, I don't know, like holding a piece of printer paper over your head as shelter from the rain.
Ooh, it's a good
It's just,
analogy.
it's not, I never even recommend bothering with it. Let birds sleep how they want to sleep.
Okay, okay. So it looks like we have it's so exciting to see all the people like who everyone's
Yeah.
logging in from. So yeah, let us know in the chat where you're joining us from. I love seeing all the different um,
Mm-hmm.
cities, countries, states. I mean, it's all over the place. All right, and let's see. So you have a fabulous presentation. These are awesome because we can go back and watch them later too to relearn.
Mm-hmm.
Just a reminder that questions will save for the end, and you use the Q&A button and not the chat feature. And with that, I'm gonna let you get started because I know we have a lot of ground to cover. So,
Okay, sounds good. Let's see from beginning. Okay, I did this wrong. I always do this wrong. Why do
well,
I?
I'm wondering if, like I was telling you earlier, like when I went on Zoom today, I had to do an update, so I know that kind of threw me off my. And now I have
No, I just need
speakers
to
I'm looking
share
at.
my, I just need to share my screen first before here we go.
There we go. Yep.
I'm so inept
We
to
got it. We got
technology.
it.
You're just, okay, very good. So from beginning though, here's what we want. All right. So today, before we answer questions, we're just going to talk a bit about how behavior works, because I think this short presentation will answer a lot of them ahead of time. Now, I've included a budgie here on purpose because I wanted to remind myself to make the comment that these principles of behavior work across the board, whether we're talking about human beings or budgies or goldfish or macaws or African greys. We're going to use the same rules of behavior to change behavior in each one of those. We've been talking a bit about the fact that there's a lot of frustrated parrot owners, and they're asking questions like these. These are the sorts of questions that come in every day to the Lafeber channel. What is the best way to break a bad habit? Why does my bird bite me for no reason? Why does my bird attack when I try to pet him? Why is my bird so bad? And why does my bird destroy everything? We are going to answer those questions today. And then there are also the statements that we hear as well. My bird bites for no reason. He refuses to get on my hand. He screams for no reason. And I give my bird toys, but all he does is destroy them. So the first principle to embrace is that behavior doesn't occur in a vacuum. There are always things that impact behavior. So we always say there's never just behavior. There are always preceding conditions that lead the parrot to behave in a certain way, and then the consequences that a behavior earns impact whether it's going to be repeated in the future or not. So I've given a couple of examples here. If you feed a bird a seed mix in a diet, that means that the metabolizable energy of the diet is very high. That means your bird's going to be hopped up. He's going to have increased hormone production because the seed mix gives him more energy and impacts the production of reproductive hormones. And so he's going to be a lot more likely to engage in screaming and biting, for instance. So that is an example of a preceding condition that kind of sets the bird up to misbehave. So there are things, as you can see, kind of behind the scenes that impact behavior. It doesn't just happen out of the blue. And then there are consequences that impact whether a behavior is going to be repeated or not. An example of that would be social attention. Let's say your bird screams and you go to him and say hi and give him a treat or something. You just rewarded the screaming. So that's going to ensure that he screams more in the future. So we call these things antecedents and consequences. So in the following example, the seed mix would be an antecedent. It sets the stage for the behavior to occur. Now, antecedents can also be distant or immediate. So immediate antecedents would be something that happens right before the behavior. So for instance, you're asking your bird to step up on your hand, you present your hand, and bammo, he bites you. Presenting the hand would be an immediate antecedent, and we wouldn't do that next time. We would change that somehow. Distant antecedents we're going to talk about in a few minutes. They tend to be things like the seed mix. Consequences can be, they follow into a number of categories depending upon the impact they can have on behavior. So rewards, we call reinforcers. That's the scientific name for them. And they will cause the behavior to increase in the future. There are also punishers that happen for behavior. And then some results or consequences of a behavior just have a neutral impact. They're not going to change the behavior in the future. Now, this is the study of applied behavior analysis. The best behavior consultants are going to have a firm grasp of applied behavior analysis and use that to solve behavior problems. So let's look a little bit at immediate antecedent examples. I already gave you the first one. Let's say there's a bird feeder outside the window, and your bird likes to sit there and look out the window and scream. That's an antecedent. You can take that bird feeder down, doesn't have to be there. Hunger can be an antecedent. Some trainers recommend weight management, where they increase artificial hunger in an animal or a bird in order to get the behavior they want. That's not a tactic that we should ever use. But hunger, slight hunger, can also sometimes make a training session be more successful. So we might want to train right before the evening meal or something like that. Sometimes another person in the room can be an antecedent. Maybe your bird loves you and hates your husband. So your husband walks in the room and the bird either bites you or the husband. Or not getting the bird's attention. I don't know what that means, frankly. Getting the birds, we'll move on. Way. Don't know what I was thinking. Consequence examples. So social attention, of course. Anytime you give your bird attention for misbehavior, you're actually teaching him to do that very behavior. But an interesting idea that has surfaced on the internet is the idea of redirection. This is very popular in social media. No behavior consultant worth their salt should ever be talking about redirection, because here's the essence of redirection. Your bird is misbehaving. He's doing something you don't want him to do. He's doing it because he finds it reinforcing. It's fun. So in order to get him to stop doing that behavior and pursue another behavior, you're going to have to offer another behavior that's even more fun than this behavior. So in effect, you're just rewarding him again for the misbehavior, and you're using some psychobabble behavior term. So no redirection. That is not how we solve behavior problems. Another consequence example can be a wobbly hand. Maybe you have your bird step up and your hand wobbles a bit. He may not step up next time. Oh, here's a good one. A vet once recommended to a client of mine that when the bird steps up, they should exercise him by dropping their hand. That bird learned to bite really hard to not step up. Going back into the cage. If you always step your bird up and put him back in the cage, step him up, put him back in the cage, he's going to learn not to step up. If you offer food to a bird to keep him quiet, he's going to be louder. He's going to scream more. So we call this the law of effect, that behavior is a function of its consequences. Another way to say that is current behavior is a result of past experience. So behaviors that get rewarded are going to occur again in the future, and behaviors that are punished from the bird's perspective will be discontinued. So let me clarify, we're not talking about us punishing the bird. We're talking about consequences that occur quite naturally that might, from the bird's perspective, be punishers. Isn't that a cute photo? This was taken at Chris Shank's property, and she had a clothesline up there, and these were two of her bare-eyed cockatoos playing and hanging on the clothesline. You can see a third one down there that was on her deck. So why do birds behave the way they do? Because of the antecedents that set the stage for the behavior and the consequences that the behavior earns. So when we use applied behavior analysis, how do we change behavior? We change the antecedents and we change the consequences. Now, I'm not going to go into how to do that today, but you should know that that's the scientific way of solving behavior that really works, so your problems truly get solved. So here's one of the questions that we've gotten. What is the best way to break a bad habit? Well, first of all, there's no such thing as a bad habit. Behaviors get repeated because they are rewarded. If we stop rewarding them and then reward another more desirable behavior, we can resolve them. So, for example, let's say we call screaming a bad habit. We can stop paying attention to the screaming, right? You always get that advice, ignore the screaming, ignore the screaming. Well, that's true. You have to. You're removing the reward for the screaming, but that's never going to change the behavior. You've got to give the bird another behavior to do. So instead, we start to reward desirable vocalizations that we like. And pretty soon we have a bird who's talking and singing and whistling instead of screaming. I want to say a word about feather damaging behavior, though. This might have been the genesis of that question, because this is often referred to as a habit. It's a little bit hard to know what the questioner intended with that question, but I want to say that feather damaging behavior is quite different than biting and screaming that do depend upon reinforcers to continue. This starts to happen because of a variety of reasons. It may have a trigger, like some people will say, my bird feather damages because we got a divorce and my husband moved out. No, that might have been the straw that broke the camel's back or the trigger, but there are a number of underlying reasons for increased hormone production. And so in order to solve that problem, and I do solve it all the time, you've got to be a bit of a detective and discover every single little reason behind it. There are people who reward the behavior. In fact, most people with feather damaging birds do, but they know that they shouldn't. So they're not, most of them are not overtly rewarding it by giving the bird attention for it, but just their small reaction, you know, the little twitches or leaving the room or whatever they do has a tendency to reward that behavior. So the solution for that is quite different. All right, next question. Why is my bird so bad? Well, it's because something in the environment is rewarding the behavior, and that is most often we are rewarding the behavior. I've already given you the example of the screaming parrot and the fact that any behavior that gets a reward will occur more often in the future. So, you know, you've got to think, well, what is a reward to my bird? You know, any social attention is going to be a reward. Even, let's go back to the screaming parrot. I have people tell me, I cover the cage, I scream back at him, I put him in the closet. And people do the craziest things, but the reality is it's all attention. And that bored parrot of yours, he doesn't really care. All right, my bird refuses to get on my hand. This is likely a result of past learning because this is a behavior that's often punished from the bird's perspective, right? You step him up and maybe you go give him a shower and he didn't want a shower. You step him up, maybe he was busy and didn't want to come with you. Birds generally are pretty polite, so they'll go along with what you want. Because you've been a reinforcing person in the past, but they might really not have wanted to leave their activity. And then maybe you step the bird up and put him back in the cage. So this is often a behavior that needs to be retaught. And it's a behavior that I always encourage people to reinforce every single time. I give the story of my African gray Marco, who will be 31 this next year. She never refuses to step up. She's been with me her whole life. I had her parents and hand-fed her. But do I still reinforce stepping up? Of course. It's the chicken and the egg thing. So there is a slightly different perspective here. We've already said you get the behavior you reinforce, not the behavior you want. But we must also understand that the behavior has function. Birds behave for a reason. So this question, why did my bird bite me for no reason? We might ask, what happened right before the bite? What was the antecedent? That will usually tell you why the bird bit you. Why does my bird attack me when I reach over to pet him? Likely he didn't want to be touched and you just missed the memo. You know, people say watch the body language, and I think that encourages people to look for very dramatic body language. But most birds aren't going to give you dramatic body language, but they will move away from you just slightly. So if you're interacting with a bird, you should be focusing on him and where he's moving and his reaction to your approaching hand. And it is true that birds in general do not like to be touched. Mammals like to be touched. Birds don't like to be touched. It is we who habituate them into this. We buy baby birds and our hands are all over them and they become habituated to the experience. If you adopt a bird who's never been curated in that way, they're not going to let you touch them. So now let's just take a peek about distant antecedents. So parrots are still undomesticated and unneutered. Those are distant antecedents because it means that they're going to be triggered by factors in the environment towards increased hormone production. It also means that they're going to offer behaviors that are inconvenient for us. Diet as a distant antecedent, social interactions, you know, the way, whether you keep your bird on your shoulder all the time or not, that's a distant antecedent. That is a trigger for increased hormone production. The environment, how much training your bird gets, any choices he's able to make, natural behaviors he's able to pursue, things like that. Those all contribute to quality of life, and that will impact behavior as well, as does health, of course. So let's look at the undomesticated status. This kind of provides an answer to that question. Why does my bird destroy everything? Birds are very smart. They are as smart as we are. They are bored. And the beak is the same for birds as our hands are for us. Look at how much you use your hands. Well, birds have as much of a mandate quite naturally, instinctively, to use their beak as we do to use our hands. And so this would be just a lack of appropriate enrichment and maybe lack of appropriate training. You can't just let these birds maraud around your house. You've got to train them to stay where you want them to be. So here is how we solve behavior. We stop blaming the parrot. We learn to provide the best environment and diet, I would say. Learn how to influence behavior correctly. We use positive reinforcement and focus on what we want the bird to do rather than what we don't want him to do. And you hire me. That's how you solve your problem. Okay. I am finished. Hopefully we have enough time for the questions that we have.
Oh yes, I'm sure we do. You know, so I was just, imagine like as that our own like self-care can play a role in how we react to our birds. So, I mean, do you think like if let's say like you're stressed out, you're getting little sleep, and then your bird is screaming, like you might have a different reaction, you know, if you're at the end of your rope, so to speak, as far as you're tired and stressed out, and you might take it on the bird or react differently and not be as patient and understanding. Do you find that to be correlated or at all? Like, is that something that we should even maybe practice on our taking care of ourselves, like a little bit, so we can have that?
I think that's always a goal,
Yeah,
right? I
yeah,
mean, most people understand that. I certainly there's going to be times when people blow up. I have done it. I have turned around and said, "Would you shut that
yeah.
up?" You know, I mean, we all reach our limits at times, but most people don't live on the edge that way. So I don't find that that impacts behavior so much. There is a problem with noise sensitivity, to give people, you know, some credit for their complaints. There are people with tinnitus. There are people who have a condition called misophonia that react to different sounds very violently. I mean, they literally have a fight or flight response. So I'm searching around. I have a little product here that I use to show people. I guess I'm not going to be able to locate it. It's a little product called the Loop Experience. You can get them from Amazon.com. Only $24.95. They're very attractive, comfortable little earplugs that have been engineered so that they reduce the noise by 20 decibels. So when I have a screaming problem, I do exactly as I said with a couple of additions. I recommend you must ignore the screaming. And that doesn't mean that you leave the room. That is not ignoring. Ignoring means that you act like the bird isn't even there. And then you start to reward desirable vocalizations with a bridge and a food reward. You do look to see if there are any antecedents that might be changed. Like, for instance, I did have a client with two little conures that sat on a perch, right, that was attached to a window with a bird feeder outside, and they just screamed bloody murder the whole time they were there. So we just relocated that perch to a quieter window so they could still look out the window, but maybe not be quite as stimulated. And then, sometimes people have trouble implementing those recommendations. So that's when I recommend those earplugs.
Ah, okay. There you go. Shopping list for the holidays.
Right. Yeah.
It's probably a Black Friday sale going on, so to keep a lookout for that. Okay. So I love that you at the very beginning that you point out that you purposely had a budgie, in your slide because the little birds, they seem sometimes people might not put them in the equation of being behavior. So I love that. So now I have a question about it. Someone has a question about a budgie. So I love this too. So the question is, my budgie keeps flying onto my hand to eat what I'm eating. How can I stop him from doing that? He's only recently been doing it. So we have a budgie that's suddenly like flying on their hand to get a piece of what they're eating.
All right. So there's a couple of different solutions. Before you eat, you could put the budgie in the cage and then eat your food and then let him back out again. If you don't want to do that, what I would recommend is getting a perch that you could put right next to you, foot and a half away or so, and give the budgie food there. Right? It's called feeding for position. If you want a bird to be in a particular place, offer him food there.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, my budgie, just come think of it, does the same thing. If I'm eating some, he's desperate to like, even try to fly on your mouth. Like he wants you to feed him, which is what I'm or there's something. So I have to, yeah,
Yeah, but with budgies, that's a mating behavior.
yes. Yeah.
And so that is not something that you want to encourage. No, he belongs on his own perch. And if you reward him for staying there, then that's what you'll get. He'll stay there. You get the behavior you reinforce, not the behavior you want.
There you go. That's a good quote right there. So we have a question about a 32-year-old blue and gold that's hormonal, had the hormone implant and the oral medication, but they haven't helped. So they always wanted to, they always want to build a nest. So should they go ahead and let her lay eggs? So
Oh, hell no. Sorry.
Okay.
Heck no. The bird is hormonal for a reason. So when I have a client come to me and the bird is, so what do we mean when we say a bird is hormonal? They're masturbating, they're regurgitating, they're cavity seeking, getting down on the floor, trying to get in your closets, things like that. And they often seek physical closeness with a person. So we do not want, let's first start with this. You never want to encourage hormone production in a companion parrot. They have enough just naturally, okay? because you can never get rid of it. And the implants and injections, and I've never heard of an oral medication before, but all of those things only help around the edges. And they're not going to help at all if you don't resolve the triggers for hormone production that are already there. So the first is the presence of a pair bond. If you've allowed a bird to sit close on your body, you've got that. So that's fine. You know, you can't change that. But what you can change is allowing the bird to engage in all the activities that form the pair bond in the first place. Cuddling, sitting on your lap, sitting on the same furniture as you, sitting on your shoulder, cuddling on your chest, climbing under the covers with you. Those things need to stop. This usually comes as devastating news to the person because we often use birds for our own emotional support. But we've got to recognize that and realize it's not appropriate. It is harming the birds. And so therefore we teach stationing to these birds so that they can be right with us. They do want to be in our proximity, and they need to be in our proximity, say between 2.5 and 6 feet away, but on a separate perch of their own. And then we need to resolve cavity seeking. The solution for that also is stationing, so that the birds, we teach them to stay up on perches rather than getting down on the floor or flying up onto the top of the kitchen cabinets. We correct the diet to make sure that the metabolizable energy is as low as possible. We keep the temperature in the home low. Many people provide extra heat to birds. That is exactly the wrong thing to do. They do not need extra heat simply because their ancestors lived in a warm place. And so if you reduce all of those things, if you make all of those changes, your bird will not be hormonal and you won't need an implant, and your life will be much happier and your bird will live a lot longer. Because increased hormone production, I am convinced, is the #1 cause for feather damaging behavior, and especially self-mutilation. We keep these birds in a state of such sexual tension all the time. They just can't stand it when it goes on for years and years and years. Think about all those Moluccans that self-mutilate. Well, why is that? Oh, maybe because cockatoos are cuddly, and we like to believe that. So, you know, you can pretty much take it to the bank that a cockatoo is self-mutilation if it's not a medical cause sat on somebody's lap for a good long time. Makes me angry.
Wow. Okay. I guess that I mean, you know, you see well-meaning people that are petting birds the wrong way, like inappropriately and not realizing it. And I always think of cockatoos because you see a lot of videos online, especially of like the cuddly cockatoos and, you know.
Oh, I hate them. I do. It's so damaging to the birds. And, you know, it's a way of getting our own enjoyment at their expense. Sorry, I know I'm getting a little heavy here, but, you know, companion parrots are suffering in our world, and it's so easy. I have a webinar I'm going to give here on the 21st about harmonious living with companion parrots. It's so easy to live with birds in a harmonious way that just flows, where they're not bothering us, and we're free to enjoy them and pursue our own activities.
All right. Oh, we have a question about a green cheek conure that keeps flying onto the floor and trying to bite their feet every time they try to go into the bathroom. So a very territorial green cheek conure. So they're very scared that they'll accidentally get stepped on. But when they try to pick him up, he tries to bite their hands. So sounds
Yeah.
like yeah, territorial green cheek.
That is a bird who's cavity seeking. If it only occurs in the bathroom, the solution is keep the bathroom door closed, keep them out of the bathroom. A lot of birds cannot be allowed in bathrooms, especially African grays. They always want to choose the bathroom as their nest cavity. Don't know why, but it's pretty universal. And so the solution would be to teach that bird stationing and keep him out of the bathroom. In other words, going to the floor is valuable to him. We know that because he keeps doing it. So make something else more valuable. Give him a perch he likes near you, put some enrichment on it, and give him reinforcers while he's there. And he will gradually learn that that is more valuable than going to the floor.
Okay. Oh, okay. Then we have a question. The bird has two bad habits. One is eating his own poop, and two is biting me out of nowhere. So with the poop, it's a it's a race. It's a race for them to get to the poop before the bird eats it. And they think they may have oh, and now I think that maybe the bird thinks it's a game. It's like, can I eat the poop before they get to it? So in the cage, the poop falls on the grate, so that's okay. But it's when he's out with me that it's a problem. And the biting hurts so bad because he doesn't let go. The biting comes out of nowhere again, so it's hard to predict when it's going to happen. So the two problems are the birds eating the poop and the biting.
Well, certainly eating their own feces is not normal. I would recommend two things. I would immediately start giving that bird apple cider vinegar in his drinking water. I would use the Bragg's apple cider vinegar that has the mother culture and is not pasteurized. And the rate would be 2 teaspoons per pint. You can mix it up and put it in the refrigerator. You may wonder if I'm able to make this recommendation. As a veterinary technician, I feel fully capable of doing so. This is a treatment that my own vet used to use for gram-negative bacteria and cases of budding yeast. So I would put that in the drinking water, make it the sole source of drinking water. And I would do that while you made a vet appointment and got that bird checked out. Make sure you get a fecal analysis done as well as a gram stain of the fecal material. And then certainly it's possible that you are rewarding the behavior and that you have turned it into a game. If I were you, I would ignore it because you're only reinforcing it. It's a tough judgment call, but I would. In fact, I'd probably maybe turn my back when you saw it. That's what I might do with that. Now, when you're trying to solve biting, you always have to ask, well, what happens right before the bite? So without that information, I mean, a lot of people say birds bite out of the blue, but they don't bite out of the blue. It's more that we missed the memo and we just simply weren't paying attention, you know. Maybe a bird is preening and you go up and ask it to step up and he turns around and bites you. Well, you weren't being very polite. You surprised him. So bites can happen that way, you know. Instead, wait till you have the bird's attention and then ask him to step up. Be polite. So I don't know if you want to tell me what happens right before, maybe we'll have time to answer that.
Okay, we'll see if they can give us more insight on that. Ooh, we got another green cheek question for you. So green cheek loves to fly onto the dining room chandelier as her favorite perch spot. So when she wants to get attention, she pulls, oh boy, she pulls off a crystal and drops it on the table below, shattering it and creates a mess. So dismantling the chandelier for attention. They don't want to yell and scream at her or to use a duster to chase her off. So any suggestions? Got a conure that has a unfortunate
That's
perch spot with something that can break.
it's a bit of a tough one because that's going to be a very attractive place for her to perch. So I would do a couple of things. I would get her some hanging perches because what she's trying to do is just perch up high, and that's a very attractive, fun perch. If I could perch on a chandelier, I might choose to do it. I can see why she would want to. So let's do this. let's give her a couple of hanging perches of her own up about the same height as the chandelier. And then, so she'll have an option. And then go to Walmart in the fabric section and buy a small, well, it's not small. So they have little packets of fabrics, different fabrics. Find Tulle, Tulle. It's going to give you about maybe, I don't know, a 4 by 6 foot piece. And then you're going to take it and you're going to wrap it around the chandelier and clip it at the top so that it falls down over the chandelier. Parrots hate landing on tulle. It is, most people don't know what it is. It's that material that they make tutus out of for
So if you've ever been a bridesmaid or sometimes
yeah, there you go.
back in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
80s,
yeah.
you had a tool
Yeah,
dress at
so
some point.
parrots don't like this. It's a good solution for bookcases too. You can Velcro it to the top of the bookcase and have it hang down. And the nice thing about that is that you can kind of see through it so it doesn't totally ruin your ambiance there, you know.
Yeah. Oh, that's fascinating. That's like I've heard of like tin foil in cats to keep them off counters. So birds,
Yeah.
it's tool. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, some birds you can use tin foil like to keep them off the top of the curtains, but I've found some birds that just love it.
Okay.
Parrotlets, love it.
Okay. So we do have more clarity on that bite question. So with the biting, he is sitting on their leg while like watching TV with them, or he flies over and just bites. So he does like a flyby bite, you know.
Yeah, okay. So this is because of increased hormone production. It's so the way you solve it is you put the bird on a perch about 2 feet from you and you pay him to stay there. You offer him reinforcers to stay there rather than on your knee, because that is the kind of biting that he does just to get your attention. I mean, African greys can be evil little souls. I love them madly, but that is just good gray fun. And it's the sort of thing that a male definitely would engage in because they kind of, greys like to test you, especially the boys.
Oh, okay, okay. Uh, do you advise? Oh, so someone asked, do you advise not to warm up to not offer warm foods? Like, do you avoid warm foods if they're home alone?
Oh, warm foods has nothing to do with it. So many people have published guesses as facts. It really clouds our parrot caregiving. So things just like behavior doesn't happen in a vacuum. The impact that a particular food has isn't going to occur in a vacuum either, or the quality of food like warmth. So the reality is, if you have a dish of warm oatmeal and you've got your bird, say, on your arm,
Mhm.
and it's a very lovey-dovey interaction, or maybe he's even on a perch, but you're, sweet talking him, and you're eating a dish, a bite of oatmeal, and you're giving him a bite of oatmeal, and the oatmeal is warm. Well, yeah, you're positioning yourself as a mate in that particular situation. But if you just give him a dish of warm food on his cage, of course that's not going to impact hormone production. It's just warm, that's all,
Okay. It reminds, so
So,
what are your thoughts on, you see videos of people like they like you give your bird a kiss on the beak, like give me kisses. Is that something that you would not like, is
well,
that kind of giving them,
it's a good way to get bitten for one thing, I mean, why in the world would you kiss a bird whose primary organ is to destroy things? It just makes no sense to me. We do it for us. I think it's
yeah.
stupid, but is it going to increase hormone production? No, not just that action in itself. It is the close physical contact, having the bird on your shoulder, on your lap, on your arm, on your hand, on your head. We do it for us. It's not for
Okay.
them. It doesn't benefit them in any way. In fact, any bird that you keep on your shoulder or your lap all the time, they're going to stop interacting with enrichment. You're going to have to reteach that all over again.
Okay, okay. Oh, okay. This is okay. We got another conure question. I mean, these okay. So okay, what about a huddle hut for a single conure to give them a chance to lay down? What are your thoughts on huts and conures and chance to lay down and
Well, I guess they're kind of a plus minus. People love to give their conures huts. And initially, I would just say, take that out, take that out. They don't need them. But I always got a lot of blowback because people love to give their conures huts. So I say this. If he goes in it during the day and spends a lot of time in there, or if he ever resists coming out of it, then you should get rid of it. If he doesn't, if he just goes in there and sleeps at night, it's fine.
okay. Um, and okay, well, so what are your thoughts on like some birds can become like they seem like they're obsessed over certain toys or like things in their cage like to snuggle up against or when they get like sometimes even masturbate on. What is like, favorite toy? What do you do in that situation?
Take it
What
away.
degree is it where you have to maybe remove something
No,
that
you
the
just take that away. That's a pair bond. And, if a bird is masturbating on something, um, well, it can go two ways. You're asking about a very specific situation where a bird might have like a stuffed animal or something like that in the cage that it stays close to all the time. I just saw a picture on Facebook of this. It was an Amazon that was cuddling very close to a stuffed quail. It was really funny. People online thought it was a real quail. They're like, Amazon's going to kill that quail. No, it's a stuffed quail. And I saw that and I'm like, well, shoot, that Amazon, she had all these pictures. That Amazon is spending a lot of time cuddling up against that quail. In that situation, I would say take the quail away because the bird is not engaging in natural, normal, healthy behaviors that we want him to. And it's our responsibility to provide guidance to our birds, right? We can't just give them everything that makes them happy because what makes them happy is everything that's going to lead to breeding. So, but if a bird masturbates on every toy in the cage, well, don't take them all out and leave the bird without enrichment. So, you got to use common sense.
Okay. Um, let's see here. Oh yeah, so what about a scenario where you're the favored person, the non-favored person comes in the room, and your bird bites you, even though because there's the unfavored person. Is that something that's common or
Yeah.
what's
Oh,
going on
yeah.
with that kind of situation?
Well, in that situation, I call it the lover's triangle, and it's very common. So the bird is pair bonded to one person, and quite obviously is on that person's body, or they wouldn't be able to bite them, right?
True. Yeah.
And so the less favored person comes into the room. Well, this is about resource guarding. If a bird has a pair bond with you, they believe that you are their resource, you are their mate. And so if the less favored person comes in, that person is perceived as an intruder. What the bird would like to do is fly over and bite that person. If they're unable to, they're going to bite you. This is a scenario that was recognized a couple of decades ago. What's the solution? Well, short-term solution is don't have the bird on your body so he can't bite you. We change the antecedent. Teach him to station, teach him to stay on a perch near you. I mean, you wouldn't have a dog on your lap all day long or sling a cat around your neck all day long. It just makes no sense at all. But the long-term solution is this. You teach the bird to station so that he's never on your shoulder. And then depending upon how violently aggressive the bird might be towards the less favored person, we can fix that as well.
Okay. Okay. Oh, okay. Someone wants to know why do their budgies only bathe if they hold up a bowl for them? The budgies have trained them. It's for a
Yeah,
very specific bath
yeah, I
style.
would say, well, this is a situation where um how do I explain this? What comes to mind is this funny story that a veterinarian related about a Shih Tzu who wouldn't eat unless the owner sang to him and then laid down on the floor with him and only used a special dish. We are the ones who train the birds to demand these sorts of consequences simply because we are too eager to make the bird happy. So instead, what you do is you put the bowl down there, and if the birds want to bathe, they're going to bathe. And if they don't, they won't. But eventually, they will figure it out that if they want to have a bath, they better just do it where it is.
Okay. That reminds me of my conure years ago. It trained me to, he only ate his pellets when I hand fed them.
Right.
And I was like, wait, he's totally got me trained. Like now
Uh-huh.
one time you'd eat them, the pellets I wanted him to try. So anyway, it's hard. It's hard to, you have to, it's hard to realize it once they trained you, yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm guessing it's a similar thing. All right, so we have a question. An Amazon has an annoying habit of displaying discontent by making a sort of continuous grunting sound. It's what they dub the miserable parrot sound. What I mean, that's a great description. What can they do to not encourage this behavior? So,
Well, we would look at the consequence that the behavior earns. That's what you do if you want to figure out why a behavior is happening. Because this is a weird behavior, right? Why would an Amazon just sit there and make a grunting noise? So, what happens when the bird makes the noise? Something happens because something is reinforcing this behavior. We know from the science of behavior that if there is no reinforcement, no reward, nothing good that the bird experiences immediately after performing the behavior, they're going to stop. So if a behavior keeps being performed, you know for sure that there's some reinforcement in it for the bird. So what is it? Is it self-reinforcing? Or is there reinforcement from the environment? If you are doing something like turning to the bird when he grunts, giving him attention for it, then in that case, you're going to deal with it the same way that you deal with the screaming problem. You can use that for any unwanted noise. So you just ignore the grunting and you reward other vocalizations that the bird makes. And pretty soon you'll find that he's making those. Now, what could make that self-reinforcing? The only thing is environmental conditions that don't meet his needs in rather a serious way. I have had cases of birds who make a constant beeping noise or a repetitive noise that can actually be classified as a stereotypy, a vocal stereotypy. And it usually occurs when birds don't interact with enrichment, and generally life is pretty boring. There's no training, no enrichment. I wouldn't imagine that's the case for anybody who's attending this presentation, but just for the sake of everybody's education, that's what would be how we would sort that out.
okay. Let's see. What's our next one? Okay. So their umbrella cockatoo, their U2 umbrella cockatoo and macaw have started coming to me on their own separately, of course. Once they are within reach, they try to bite me though. So they want advice. It sounds like maybe they're ganging up on them, he or she. So it says my umbrella cockatoo and macaw have started coming to me on their own separately, of course. And once they are within reach, they try to bite. So trying to imagine, those are
Yeah,
big,
hard to,
big beats.
hard to imagine what might initiate a behavior like that. But sometimes it's just not possible to know why birds are doing something. I mean, generally speaking, we know why birds bite because it works, right? Some birds bite to get out of doing what you want them to do. Some birds bite to get a reaction. That could be the case here, that this has just become a bit like a game. But once again, you can teach these birds to stay on a perch rather than, rampaging around the room. It sounds like things are a bit out of control, maybe in this situation. I don't know. But at any rate, you certainly wouldn't let them bite you. As soon as you saw a bird heading towards you, I would get up, if you're thinking that it's a good thing that they're coming to you this way, I would say, oh no, oh no. Instead, in order to establish a relationship with them, that needs to be on your terms. That would be a subject for a consultation or a Q&A session. I've got a new offering on my website where you can just buy an hour of time to kind of sort that one out.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, it sounds good. Okay. So, someone asked when you say you put them on a perch and give them reinforcement, what is the best type of reinforcement? Like, and to clarify, is a reinforcer something like seed, like something that they would like a seed treat?
A reinforcer would be anything that your bird wants enough to motivate him to do what you're asking him to do. So that's going to be unique to every single parrot. Um, if a bird is eating a high fat, high carb diet, it can be very hard to find the right reinforcer. I usually just ask people what they're feeding now. If the diet needs to be corrected, we start that. But then we use anything that the bird likes. Sometimes we have to even start out with Doritos or something like that. I mean, but then if birds are not familiar with the more typical reinforcers like seeds and nuts, then, we can teach them to eat those, and then we don't have to use the horrible foods anymore.
Okay. And then let's see. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And then, so going back, so the umbrella cockatoo and the macaw, they're going to the owner and biting this when they're out of the cage to play. So they're doing this during their playtime. They're using it as an opportunity to go over.
Well, when birds are out of the cage, playtime should not look like they're just going anywhere they want to. That's not sustainable. Instead, what we must do, and that's what I'm going to talk about in this webinar that I'm giving, is to create an environment that belongs to them. I think the problem is most people are still stuck in this one cage idea, and if the bird's lucky, maybe they have a play stand. But in reality, you want to give birds as many perches as you can in the room where they spend the most time. So hanging perches, play stands, natural branches. And once you have the environment in place, then what you do is you reward the bird for being anywhere on that environment. They don't have stationing in birds is not a situation where you teach them to stay in only one place like we do for a dog.
Hmm.
No, we're teaching them to stay on their furniture and off of our furniture. If you do that, then the problem isn't going to occur.
Okay. Um, wow. Okay, we got through a lot of good questions and really good answers. I have to before I start. I got a great comment I got to read to you. But I have I have a burning question for you.
Yeah.
So we had that. I think we shared it once early on with you. As there's that video of the Amazon. It's like a very viral video, and he's like, "I'm not going to bite you," and like the girls, it's like this Amazon is like really on the floor, is dilated. His pupils are going crazy, flared tail feathers, and we know it's going to end in a like he rushes the whoever's filming. And if you encounter a bird like that that's on the ground that's very aggressive. How do you approach it? Where do you do with it? Like, so that's the situation. Your bird is,
Mhm.
what's your next step in that situation?
Okay, so just to clarify, you have a bird who is very aggressive out of his cage on the floor. And if you ask him to step up, you're going to get bitten. You just know it.
Or they're
One of
chasing you, like just pure on just like rushing you if you come near it. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, in that case, you've got to do whatever you can, right? I mean, you can't let yourself be bitten. So you're going to get up on a countertop or do whatever you need to in order to keep yourself safe in the moment. But if you're not being rushed like that, but the bird is just maybe around you being menacing or any, marauding around the room, otherwise you can take a towel, like a bath towel, and swing it in front of their beak, and they will latch on, and then you can carry them over to the cage, deposit them into it, and swing the door shut. That's how you do that.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's I was, yeah, I was wondering like if you, yeah, I was curious to know if like if you would like let them kind of settle, give them time to settle down, or if they're not obviously going to settle down. But that's something that's, yeah, I guess,
Well, you
yeah.
could let them settle down, but it's inconvenient because you maybe got to go somewhere. I
Yeah,
mean,
no, I mean that's like I never that's a it's like
yeah,
that's never
yeah.
thought of that. That's a great
And,
idea.
some people say, well, pick them up with a stick, but no bird's going to step up on a stick or a perch they're not familiar with in that circumstance. And so then you've got to use force. You've got to push it into them, and that just is going to make the aggression worse. But most birds, I don't know why, but they love grabbing a towel with their beak. So I've done this many times. I just go over, deposit them into there,
That's
and
amazing. Never.
I kind of think it serves them right. It makes me happy to do that.
Okay, that is like wow. Okay, that's I'm glad I asked that because I now hopefully that's like that's just amazing. Okay, that's okay. So now I have today's a giveaway winner. I gotta announce that.
Yeah.
And they're gonna have the pumpkin spice Nutriberries. This is the last month. It's November. Like they'll be gone after this month. So and that is going to be going out to Beverly Kent. Congratulations. You also get another Lafeber product of your bird's choosing. And then, oh, I have to find this comment because I think it really captures, uh, oh gosh, someone, okay, wait, hang on. Gotta bear with me because, oh, I learned so you gave advice earlier and someone said, I learned all this the hard way. This woman is a genius. So you really are, I love that comment so much because
Thank you.
I think that sums it up. I mean, you kind of, I mean, we all got great takeaways from today. Um,
Definitely.
Since this is recorded, we do have your information, your website, your contact. There's a slide on your presentation, correct? And would that also bring them to the webinar that you're webinar, the information about the webinar that's coming up too?
No, because I have not posted it on the website yet.
Okay.
Better get that done. Okay. It's on Facebook, if you're on
Okay.
Facebook. If not, write to me and I'll send you the link.
Okay. All right. So yeah, we got we got your so I encourage everyone to at least watch back to the point where you can see your contact information, but even rewatching this whole thing because you have so much good information. Okay, Pamela,
Thank
it's always a pleasure to have you on with us, and
you.
I
Well,
mean
for me.
this advice is just it's like people just love how you deliver it. I love how you kind
Mm,
of go through the chatter of different like what kind of like what's actually going to work, and I just think you nail it every time. So thank you.
thank you very much.
All right, guys, on that note, I'm going to wish everyone a fabulous weekend. All the best to you and your flock.
Yes.
Until next time. Can't wait to see you
I
again, Pamela.
second
Take
that.
care.
Okay.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.